Hello everyone, my name is Maury and I'm on the PS4 side of the Dames of Destiny. This week we're going to be beginning our 10-part series on the Book of Sorrows. Each week for the next 10 weeks we'll be meeting on Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. CST on the Dames of Destiny Twitch, talk our way through the Book of Sorrows, and if you miss a week, don't worry about it. We're going to be uploading all of these videos to the Dames of Destiny YouTube page, which you can find by going to our Twitter account or just searching Dames of Destiny on YouTube. Make sure you bring your Grimoire cards, bring your thinking caps, and let's get started. So this is going to be part 1 of the Book of Sorrows. So this book sets up the origin story of the Hive, and it particularly focuses on the royal family. So it's going to focus on Oryx, Crota, the sisters, and the court. When reading these Grimoire cards, you have to think of this less as a linear story and more as a play. It's going to be more lyrical, more fanciful. There's going to be a lot more pictures, a lot less descriptions and details. It's not going to tell you the whole story. So we're going to have to draw a lot of conclusions for ourselves on some of the details, particularly on how much time has passed between different cards and how our characters got from point A to point B. Bungie didn't think these were details we needed to know, but they could be very interesting to extrapolate on. So let's begin by setting the stage for this play. The planet we're on is called the Fundament, and it's divided into 2 spheres, the sky and the deep. The majority of the inhabitants live in a space between these 2 environments. There are thousands of known species on the planet. One Grimoire card says there's only 511, but later we find out that's not true. The sky contains an entity called Stormjoy, and it's described as one would describe one of those little deep sea fishes that have like the light bulb sticking off their nose so they can lure in prey and then like chomp them. That's how I think about it. The species that we're focusing on is what we're going to call the proto-hive at the moment. They haven't transformed into the hive yet, and that'll be part 3 of our series. We'll talk about how they transform. And they are the smallest of all species on the Fundament. They have really short lifespans, at most 10 years, and those are for the breeders. They act very insectful, so in a very sort of hive sense, ha ha ha. They're protected by knights, and they have mothers who breed and live longer than the rest of the species. If you think of bees, this is kind of how it works out, where like there's worker bees that are everyday bees, there's ones that protect the hive, and then there's the queen bee that breeds and lives longer than the rest of them. So a theory behind why they have such short lives is because it allows the species to adapt and recover very quickly. So if something happens to part of the population, they can breed so fast they'll restore their numbers. They live on a moving continent or a ship around the planet. And it talks about engines being attached to this, which is why I think it's more of a ship than instead of a landmass. So you can think of maybe Cloud City from Star Wars Episode 5, if y'all are following the Star Wars train right now, and how that sort of moved around and collected resources and sort of lived in this cloudy haze. So the actors in our play. Right now, we're starting off with following the royal daughters of the Proto-Hive. There's She-Ro, who is more militant, Sathona, who is one that wants to live really long, and Arash, who is very intellectual. There are 2 other actors that set events into motion at the beginning. The aging Asmonium King of the Proto-Hive, and Tauix, the tutor of the royal family. Now, every good story needs a conflict, and ours starts out with 4. This will transform over the time of our play, but these 4 are very interesting, and can be divided into 2 sections. First is the immediate conflict, and then second is going to be the larger picture conflict. So for the immediate conflict, there's the court politics with the Asmonian court, which our Grimoire card is going to be about. And then there is the Helium court. They are a cousin of the Proto-Hive. They're described as humanoid, so 2 arms, 2 legs, but they have 3 eyes, exactly like the Proto-Hive do. And they are described as bright and evil. They are currently waging a war against the Asmonian court, and it looks like they're either at a standstill or they're slightly winning. So larger conflicts is just the world that they live in, the Fundament. The environment there is a really scary place to live. It talks about how storms occur frequently, with acid rain and erratic lightning that can destroy a being in an instant. And because the Proto-Hive are the lowest of the totem pole, it's kind of scary because everything else can kill you, pretty much. You don't have a lot of power. And when there's 1,000 things that can kill you, you're really, really scared. So the final conflict that's coming up, that's in the background, is a universal conflict, the coming syzygy. Now, that's a really crazy word that's spelt without any vowels. It just means that the alignments of the moons are going to happen. So when the moons align into one line. So if you all remember back to Disney's Hercules, where all of the moons aligned and it opened up the sea so the Titans could be released, sort of like that. It's going to create something called a God wave that's going to destroy all the continents and all life on the fundament. That's probably a pretty bad idea. So let's get started about our first act. The first act I've called the Betrayal, and this is going to cover the first 3 parts of the Book of Sorrows, or the first 3 grimoire cards. The card we're going to read today beautifully summarizes our conflicts, the 4 we just talked about, the world and the environments that we are in, and setting up the future for our actors. What is their motivation? So the card is part 2, the Hateful Verse. It's worth 5 grimoire points, and I'm sure Owen in chat can tell us where we can find the fragment for this, because I honestly don't remember. So here we go. For consideration of the Helium Court, written in desperation, this sealed secret. I am Tauix, sterile mother, teacher to the children of the Asmonian court. As a mother, I live long. As a neuter, I can rise above the battles of court politics. I alone see the patterns of survival. Alone, I design the great engines that move the Asmonian court. Now, alone, I must act to save my kingdom. Senility has claimed my lord the Asmonian king. He is 10 and mad. The study of ancient text consumes him. Today he raves about moons above the storm. Tomorrow he will wander the halls, speaking to his familiar, a dead white worm from the deep sea. He keeps it in a glass. He tends to it, and he neglects the duties of a king. The Asmonian king has 3 surviving heirs, each 2 years old. Shiro, the youngest and bravest, who wants to be a knight. Sathona, most clever, who wants to be a mother. And Arash, navigator child, who dreams of the infinite ocean. Tomorrow she will return from the tungsten monoliths. None of these are suitable heirs. None of them will protect the Asmonian court from the howling fundament. Shiro can fight, but not lead. Sathona can think, but not fight. Arash's curiosity will draw her away from duty. I fear for all future children. Soon the Asmonian king will lock himself in the royal orrery to study the moons. Gather your knights, O helium drinkers, and invade our continent. Kill the 3 heirs, and I will rule the Asmonian court as your regent, and build engines for you. And if I fail, let the Leviathan in the deep eat me. Written in grief, this hateful request. Tauix, Asmonian mother, neutered to watch. So that's a crazy card, because it is a letter to the enemy saying, hey, I'll turn coat here. I'll be a traitor if you all make me queen, just for the rest of my life. You know, no biggie, right? I'll let you into the castle. I'll give you the keys. So this was card number 2. Now, how does she have the ability to do this? Part of it has to do with her being neutered, because it's kind of a big deal for a species that relies on quick breeding for their survival. Having someone who doesn't have to worry about protecting their eggs, so looking at the short-term survivability of the species, but can live very long. So you would think they would be the wisest among the species, because all they can do is like read and think and learn and have the collective wisdom of the group. Now, having such a privileged spot in the court makes this kind of unique, because she's also the tutor to all the princesses at this time. Woo. Hi, thralls! Hold on, let me kill these guys. I want to talk, please. Please let me talk. So she had such a privileged place in the court, and it would make one really powerful, saying, hey, I don't have to worry about these petty things that other people have to worry about. So it would make her a very powerful figure. And potentially having this power would make her thirst for more power. As, you know, that's how it seems to go. And because she doesn't breed, she doesn't have to focus on the eggs or the short-term survival of her species. She focuses on the long-term survival of her people. But this is one of those instances where we can ask, does she miss the forest for the trees? Is she looking so far long-term that she is no longer considering the immediate effects of, hey, we're going to kill our king, kill the royal family, and turn our land over to conquerors? What is that going to do? Like, we might survive, a remnant might survive, but how changed will they be? And you know, after this card, the details are kind of blurred, leading us into our next act. We know that Taux is successful in her plea to the Helium Court. She now rules as Queen Regent. We also find out that the king has died. Who or what killed him is not yet revealed, but it's strongly hinted that Taux killed him, or was extremely instrumental, i.e. in the same room when it happened. The three daughters are forced into exile. They weren't killed in the initial purge, as it were. And they make an oath to be resolved back to the Asmodean court, like resolved to go back and destroy the betrayer Taux, and then drive back the Helium Knights and destroy their kingdom. So this is where we have the three sisters coming together, making those initial blood oaths, which will be important later. And you all might be thinking, well, what does this have to do with Oryx and Crota and all that fun stuff? Well, you guys will just have to come back and see it next time. So what do you all think, chat? I'm sorry, Renegade Drummer, that you have to be at work. Of course it will be archived. It will definitely be archived. I think it's just interesting that they would have a king, like 10 years old, being senile. It just seems so young to me, and that's because we live really long lives. But if 10 years, if each year was like 10 years for people, you know, he'd be 100 years old. Be a little crazy. Nope. Sword time! Come here. Knight! Now, the question is, that I just thought of by seeing that knight. You know how the Helium Court, they said they had 2 legs, 2 arms, and 3 eyes? Well, it kind of looks like our acolytes here. And they said there were knights of the Helium Court. You know, that makes sense. And if you all don't have the fragments and you want to be able to read up on this in order, because the Bungie cards don't go in order when you're looking at them, go to the Destiny Tracker and they have them all in order for you. And that's how I'm pulling this. And some of them, when you're reading, it'll have 2 dashes and 2 pluses next to the lines. Line up the dashes and read those in order. So it'll be like an every other line sort of thing. It makes sense if you read it all together, but then if you splice it out into those 2 separate sentences, it makes it a lot more interesting, because it sounds like a dialogue between like the darkness and the light. So the sky, which would be the light, and the darkness, which is the deep. Thank you, Darwing. So that Grimoire card can be found in the Mausoleum while in patrol in the Dreadnought, wow, in one side of the chest rooms behind a cylinder. I'm gonna have to find that. This one's a little too low to get there yet, but she shall get there eventually. Whoop. Kill all the things. That's what I was doing. I'm really thinking about switching my Gallowhorn over. That'd be fun. There's this guy. There they are. Do. Whoa! This could be bad. This could be very, very bad. Another funny thing that I didn't read. Well, I don't know how funny this is. It's kind of tragic. But how it talks about there's only 3 living heirs. So these princesses were born in a group of 13. And 10 of them were sacrificed, were offered as tribute to the Helium Court so that they wouldn't attack the continent anymore that they were on. Didn't work out so well. You kind of killed off, 4/5 of your royal family, your ruling class. It's not so good. Hi, Knights. See? Totally could be part of the Helium Court right there. All right, friends. Well, that concludes this segment of the first part of our 10-part series on the origin story, of the Hive. So going through the Book of Sorrows. Next week, we will be putting up another one. Next week's going to be a little bit longer. So keep watch on that. We'll be here at 6:30 p.m. CST. We're going to go through, read another card, talk about some of the background, how it relates to the larger play that we are seeing unfold between these 3 sisters and the 4 conflicts. So with that, everybody, use your jazz hands. Say goodbye. And we will see you next time